So wake up, Mr. Freeman. Wake up and smell the ashes.
Noshbite here. Today we're going to be talking about Half-Life 3 leaks, so make sure you smash that like button.
If I ever start making videos like that, please find some dirt on me and have my channel buried.
I certainly hope you know what you're doing.
Half-Life 3. I know it. It's happening. I can feel it. Glad you're here. Glad you made it. This is my Half-Life 1 build. It's not a Half-Life 3 build, but if you're a Half-Life fan, it shouldn't matter. I love everything. The only thing I haven't played is Half-Life Alyx, but I'm a huge fan, if you can't tell. And I guess we'll start with a little story behind this machine. So this is built in the Singularity computers, Spectre V1. This is before they were even powder coated, so I think it was the first run. Might be wrong on that. But this machine is about 6 years old, if you can't tell by looking at some of the parts. I'll list all the specs up top. I'm not going to read them all off. But yeah, so this machine has had quite the life. This is the third iteration. It started out with a completely different tube configuration than it does now. I then, after I built it the first time, I then actually designed a desk that was built around this case, and it ended up being mounted to the side of it. I'll display some pictures while I'm talking about this. And that was while I was living in Oklahoma. Then this machine went with me to where I am now, which is in Maine, and it had some damage. Definitely on the drive up, and then unfortunately the big drain plug on the back broke off and chipped a bunch of the acrylic. And then in the drive up, there were a bunch of stress cracks around the reservoir where the screws go. I think it was a total of 10 of the screws that had stress cracks. And yeah, so this was a long build because not only did I have to rip the entire thing all the way down, fix the stress cracks, fill in the hole in the back with epoxy, but I had also chosen in my infinite wisdom to use my own custom, black dyed coolant. That did not fare very well inside, and I had to take everything apart, clean it. I ended up sanding it, the inside of the reservoir and all the water routes in the back plate, and it was a lot of work, but I think it was worth it the way it came out.
Why do we all have to wear these ridiculous ties?
This is the third time that I've done this take. I keep forgetting to go over things, but third time's a charm. So I have 4 of the 5 spray colors that I used, and so 3 of them, the 94s, those are Montana colors. I've got an anthracite gray, I've got the lava orange, and just a matte black. The matte black I really only used for anything that wasn't already black. So just this was chrome. And then the part of the water block, which I also painted, was chrome. It's just chrome plated plastic. Everything else I used, so the textured paint was all the anthracite gray what I did for that texture was I used a sea sponge. And you can get these in a pack of 5 on Amazon. They come in different, sizes. I guess you could say, like, the smaller ones have a smaller hole density than, these big ones. But basically all I would do is that I would just take the spray can, spray a little bit directly on the sea sponge. You have to soak them first they're all like dried out when you first get them. And then just kind of, dab it in one direction without dragging it. So you just kind of quickly dab it and take it away. And it left this nice texture. The idea was, I wanted to do something very different. Like I said, this machine has been built 3 times. The case, I really didn't do anything to it. It came black. Some of the paint was chipping off. Because like I said, this is before they were powder coated, and I just wanted to do something crazy. So this is basically influenced from the box art, which the box art has a darker orange than the CD case. So there's kind of like a reddish orange, which is what I used for the pump cover, and then this piece here. I only use it in a few places. The mount for the power supply, and you can barely see this piece inside here, just kind of accent pieces. Didn't go crazy with it. This piece on the top, and then this piece in the front, which isn't going to show up very well with the lighting the way it is, so forget that. Okay, so the darker orange I don't have in front of me, but that was a Rust-Oleum fluorescent, and I'm gonna get links to everything and put it in the description so you have it. So that's the textured paint. The Rust-Oleum high heat matte. I had this because I restored a grill earlier in the year, so I just said screw it, I'll use it because I have it. So I use this for all of the screws. And when I say that there's a lot of screws on this case, there are a lot of screws on this case. There are hundreds and hundreds of screws. So every screw on the water plate in the back, the water block for the video card, the front distro plate, just hundreds and hundreds of screws. But I will say that stuff was perfect because it dries incredibly quickly, and then you just bake it in the oven because it cures with high heat, and it's solid. I really didn't have any trouble. You can probably see them pretty well. I didn't have a lot of trouble with, the paint chipping off as I'm, driving the screws in or anything like that. So I definitely recommend that stuff if you want a matte black on metal. Now I did paint, I did sand every single screw as well. So they were sanded and painted. What's nice about this build and the paint job is I really didn't have to worry too much about getting it perfect, right? It's not gloss, it's not a metallic, it's not a candy, it's a grungy, distressed looking paint job. So if a couple of things don't go correctly, or some paint chips off, it just adds to the aesthetic you're already trying to go for. And the other really cool thing that I worked with on this build was Rub and Buff. Now, Rub and Buff, I've been hearing from Adam Savage on his Tested channel for years. This is more when he was doing builds. He doesn't do as many builds anymore, I don't think. But yeah, he's been using it and talking about it for years. And if you hear anyone talk about how to use it, they always say a little bit goes a long way, and that is absolutely true. You do not want to overdo it with this stuff. And literally what I would do is I would take a cotton swab, take the cotton off the end, and then just put a little dab of this stuff. I use mostly the silver leaf. I only use the ebony on the dark orange parts. On the dark orange parts, I did ebony and silver leaf, and then I would just, rub a little bit onto it, and then actually wipe it off on the paper, on a clean part of the paper towel, because again, you really just want like a tiny bit. And then I would just take it and just kind of swipe it along the edges, making sure that I only got the edge and not, sometimes I would kind of overdo it and get on the top of the metal a bit just to look, I kind of did it here. You can see that. Focus, do it. But for the most part, I try to stay on the edges, and I tried not to go too crazy with it, because I felt like, if there was too much on there, it would just not look, I don't know, realistic. So yeah, that was a lot of fun to play with. I guess another method you probably could do is, paint the piece black, and then just sand the edges away and down to the bare metal, and then just clear over it. But I don't know, I feel like this is probably easier than doing that, less risky, I guess. But yeah, you can kind of see how the edge on this orange part is all silver metallic, and then there's also some of the ebony on there. But I think where I went farther than where other people would probably go is I painted the water block for the video card. I painted the water block on the CPU. I painted the shroud on the motherboard. Part of the reason I did that is because the screws that mounts the back, there's like a metal plate on the back that the motherboard shroud bolts into, and most of the standoffs, most of the screw holes were broken. So I had to take it apart anyway and fix all of those with epoxy. So I decided to just go for it and paint that too. And you can't see a ton of it, but it probably doesn't show up very much on camera, and it's hard to get to it. But yeah, the only thing I didn't paint was the RAM. I didn't feel like, I don't know, taking those apart and just painting, because they're Trident Z Neos, so they have the brushed aluminum on half of it, and then the brushed black on the other half, and I just didn't touch those. I can always do it later. They come out easy, right? So, but I decided not to do that now. All right, so that covers rub and buff. The other thing I used a little bit was this weathering set. I mainly used the metal. The rust didn't show up very much. And, because I was using the metal on the dark orange parts just to kind of add like a look of like oil dripping down from like the screw holes. You might be able to see that there. And then where do I have another piece? Yeah, you might be able to see. There's, a little bit right there, a little bit right there. And then, oh yeah, you can't even see that front part, so we won't do that. But yeah, just to add another layer of, kind of weathering, distress, kind of make it look like dirty and oily. And then the last thing I did was you can see the pattern in here, because I actually don't know why. Maybe it's because I used the Montana black on this piece, because this was originally, you know, aluminum or chrome or whatever. But you can kind of see these lines going up. So I actually used a tank top, a red tank top, to do those lines, and I would just kind of, again, like the sea sponge, I would just you know, spray the tank top with the spray paint, and then just kind of dab it in one direction, being careful again not to drag it. But other pieces where I did this, where I went on top of the original black of the case, and then I cleared over it with and I don't have this in front of me, I'll link to it in the description, but I used a satin poly, I think, on top, and it made it go away. You can barely see it. Maybe in some places you can kind of see the lines there, like, you know, right there. But yeah, the satin just made so I was using this stuff, the high heat, to do those lines, so they were very subtle on the black. But yeah, the clear just made them disappear for some reason. I don't know if it's because maybe the clear, because it's a satin, it's a little milky and cloudy, that it just, I don't know. But anyway, it's not a big deal. It still looks awesome. And yeah, I think that covers everything. I didn't talk about the stencils. So these were just, you know, vectors that, some are vectors that I found on the internet, some I created myself in Illustrator. What I ended up doing is buying one of those like really cheap Cricuts machines you can get at Walmart, which I mean, did it do the job? Yes. But if I had a lot of vinyl to cut, I would not use one of those, and I would just bite the bullet and buy a bigger machine where you just feed it a roll and you're done. With the Cricut, you have to, there's a hard sheet that has adhesive on it that you have to put the vinyl on and then feed that into the machine. And then the software is like a walled garden where, you know, they're constantly like, you have to sign up for it. I don't think there's no subscription, thank God. But, you know, they're constantly trying to upsell, like, you know, designs that they have in their library and usage of that and upgrading or whatever. I actually think that you can upgrade to a subscription so you get access to other things. Anyway, it, you know, again, fine for a couple of small things. Would not use it for every day if you do a lot of vinyl. And you have to use their software. You can't, as far as I know, you can't use any other vinyl software to cut on those. You have to use theirs, which is annoying. Hence walled garden. But yeah, so I made the, you know, the Black Mesa lettering. This one up here, I did the, you know, the hazard lines. Gordon Freeman, which I know it's Half-Life 2, it's not Half-Life 1, but, you know, that's a badass picture of Gordon, so I'm not sad about it. This was the most challenging. I had to take some existing artwork and then, you know, kind of minimalize it down to black and white, you know, take out a bunch of features so that it was just this minimalistic version of him. And some of the cuts were so small that I barely got the stencil. I mean, it could barely cut it to begin with, but some of it was so small that you have to use transfer material to transfer the vinyl. You know, you basically put another adhesive, clear adhesive, you know, vinyl sheet on top of your graphic, and then you peel away that transfer vinyl on the top, and then the graphic has to come with it. Well, some of these were so small that I had to use some of these lines and points and things were so small that I had to use an X-Acto knife and peel them up as I was kind of peeling. It's hard to explain, but it was a pain. Totally worth it though. This is like, definitely one of the highlights of the build. And then I cut another portion with just the sunglasses, and that's just rub and buff. I just used some rub and buff there, and I used a stencil to make sure it didn't get everywhere, because it would have, and just cleared over it.
So send it already.
I'd first like to say thank you to Daniel at Singularity Computers for all your help getting this case fixed. Matter of fact, I forgot to mention that he suggested Weldon, which is what I use to fill all the stress cracks. It's very thin, so it really sucks itself into the cracks. That's nice.
Nice.
So what you're looking at right now is the next video. This is an old 46 machine. I think it's an integrated CPU. I was working on this with my son, and it's pretty special to me. I'll explain why in the video. But because of that, I don't want to sell it. I don't need it. I already have enough. Like, see, I have enough. But I want to give it away to subscribers. One, because I want it to go to a home, someone that's going to appreciate it. And two, this is obviously my first video, and I need support. I need subscribers, subscribes. So the reason I'm making this video, and why I want to make more videos, why I started the channel, is because I'm sort of going through a midlife thing here. I'm 40. I was just recently laid off. The last day was New Year's Eve. That's fun, right? Last year, I had a scare. I thought I was going to lose my job. I had to start looking aggressively. And the year before that, I was laid off right before a road trip vacation during summer. So I'm pretty burnt out from that, and I'm looking to make some changes, do something different, go in a different direction. I don't expect my YouTube channel to, bring in a lot of money or replace my salary or anything like that. But my hope is that if I start just doing something else, something that I'm more passionate in, I love modern computing, retro computing, anything to do with electronics. I have other ideas of things, in the engineering space related to these things that I'm passionate about, that I'm going to pursue on top of this. And, in the meantime, I will have to continue working in the industry until I can make something else happen. But with that said, I really appreciate you getting to the end of the video. If you can like it and subscribe, that would be awesome. And I just really thank you for watching. Thanks.